You open a website you have never visited before, and somehow it already knows where you are. The prices are in your currency. The language is yours. A little banner says, "Looks like you are in Singapore," and offers you the local version of everything. It feels like the site reached out and touched your front door. But here is the strange truth. Nobody told that website where you are. There is no address book it looked you up in. It made a guess, a fast and confident guess, from a map that is mostly educated assumptions stitched together. And that map, the one quietly deciding what country the whole internet thinks you live in, is wrong more often than anyone admits. That is what this video is about. How the internet figures out where you are from nothing but a number, why it works at all, and why it fails in ways that matter. The everyday experience. Start with what you actually notice. Local prices, the right language, a weather widget for your city, an advert for a shop down the road. All of that comes from one thing, your network address, the number your device is given when it connects to the internet. Websites read that number and translate it into a place, and most of the time the result is close enough that you never question it. It just feels like the internet knows you. But that feeling hides an enormous amount of guesswork because the number itself does not contain a location at all. It never did. The location has to be looked up, and the looking up is where all the interesting failure lives. Never isi the number. Here is the thing people get wrong. They imagine a network address is like a postal address, that it has a country and a city baked into it somewhere. It does not. It is just an identifier, a label handed out so traffic can find its way back to you. On its own, it tells you nothing about geography, the same way a phone number does not tell you which room of the house someone is standing in. So every single time a site greets you by your city, something behind the scenes has taken that bare number and matched it against a separate map, built and maintained by someone else, that claims this range of numbers tends to live over here. The whole illusion rests on that external map being right, and the map is a guess made of several weaker guesses. How the maps are built. So where does the map come from? The first and most solid source is registration data. The big blocks of network addresses are formally handed out to organizations, internet providers, companies, universities, and that ownership is public record. You can look up which provider controls a given block and where that provider is based. That gets you a rough country, sometimes a region, fairly reliably. But it is coarse. A single provider might serve an entire nation from one registration, so knowing they own the block tells you the country, but not whether the user is in the capital or a village 500 kilometers away. Registration is the skeleton of the map. It is accurate at the large scale and almost useless at the small one. The clues that get volunteered to sharpen the picture, the map makers gather a second kind of data, the clues that companies and services quietly volunteer over time. When a provider sets up its network, it often labels things, names its equipment after the city it sits in, publishes routing details that hint at geography. Some apps and services, with permission, report a real location once and tie it loosely to a network address, which then feeds back into the maps. Bit by bit, these breadcrumbs let the map descend from country down towards city. But every one of these clues is a soft signal. A label can be stale. A hint can be copied from somewhere else. The city-level map is built from thousands of these little assumptions, and any of them can quietly be out of date, measuring how far the signal travels. The third source is the cleverest and the most physical. You can actually measure roughly where a network address sits by timing how long signals take to reach it from many known points around the world. Light and electricity move fast, but not instantly, so a number that answers very quickly from one city and slowly from another is probably nearer the first. By triangulating these timings from many vantage points, map makers can place an address geographically without anyone ever telling them where it is. It is genuinely impressive. But it is also an estimate with error bars. easily thrown off by the strange paths data takes through the network, which often have nothing to do with straight-line distance on a map. Why? It is a probability, not a fact. So step back and see what geolocation really is. It is not a lookup of a known fact. It is a confidence-weighted blend of registration records, volunteered hints, and physical measurement, all combined into a best guess with a probability attached. Good services will even tell you how sure they are. A high confidence for the country, a much lower one for the city. The number that feels so precise when a site names your neighborhood is, underneath, a bet. And like any bet, it is right often enough to be useful and wrong often enough to cause real trouble for anyone who treats it as gospel. The big failure modes. Now the failures, because they are not rare edge cases, they are everywhere. A large company might route all of its offices in dozens of countries through one central exit, so everyone appears to be in a single city that none of them live in. Mobile networks are worse. A phone's traffic often surfaces through a gateway far from the actual handset, so the map places the user in a different region of the country entirely. And across much of the internet, many users now share a small pool of addresses through a translation layer, which smears their real locations together into one ambiguous point. In all of these cases, the map is not slightly off. It is confidently, specifically wrong, and it has no way to know it. The map is always rotting. There is one more reason the map is shakier than it looks, and it is simply time. Network address blocks are not handed out once and frozen forever. They get traded, leased, reassigned, and moved between providers and even between countries as the supply runs tight. A block that genuinely sat in one city last year might be serving a completely different region today under a new owner who never told the map makers. So the map is not just an estimate, it is an estimate that is constantly going stale at the edges. The people who maintain these databases are forever chasing the changes, remeasuring, re-registering, patching the drift. A good map is updated relentlessly precisely because an unupdated one quietly rots into being wrong. The location you are shown is only ever as fresh as the last time someone bothered to check. Why proxies scramble it instantly? This is also exactly why a proxy or a private network tunnel changes your apparent location so easily. Remember, the site is not detecting where you physically are. It is reading the address your traffic arrives from and looking that up on the map. Route your traffic through a machine in another country and the site reads that machine's address instead, finds it on the map, and cheerfully concludes you are wherever that machine sits. The geography was never measured directly. It was inferred from the address, so changing the address changes the answer. Understanding this is the whole reason location-based blocking is so leaky. It is guarding a guess, who relies on it, and what breaks. So who actually leans on this shaky map? And what happens when it slips? Streaming services use it to decide what you are allowed to watch. Shops use it to set prices and currencies. Banks and platforms use it as one signal in deciding whether a login looks suspicious. And when the map is wrong, real people pay for it. Someone traveling gets locked out of their own account because the map says they are somewhere implausible. A customer is shown the wrong currency and overcharged. A perfectly innocent person is flagged because their mobile traffic surfaced in a city they have never visited. The map's confidence becomes the user's problem, and they almost never get to see why. The defensive view. Here is the part that matters for anyone building these systems, and it is the defensive lesson. The people who do this well never trust geolocation on its own. They treat it as exactly what it is, one weak signal among many, and they cross-check it. Does the claimed location agree with the device's own time zone and language settings? Does it match where this account usually appears? Has it jumped impossibly far in an impossibly short time? A single location reading proves almost nothing. It is the agreement, or the contradiction, between several independent signals that actually carries weight. The careful systems ask not, where does the map say this is? But does this whole story hang together? That shift from trusting one guess to weighing many is the difference between a system that is easily fooled and one that is hard to. Reading a location claim honestly, and this points to how an ordinary person can think about it too. When a site insists it knows your city, remember what it is really doing. It is reading a number and consulting a map of probabilities, nothing more. That is why it is so easily wrong when you travel, or use a work network, or sit behind a mobile gateway in another part of the country. It is not magic, and it is not certainty. So when a service makes a serious decision of your apparent location, blocking a login, refusing a purchase, the right question is not why does it think I am there, but why is it trusting a single weak guess so heavily? The well-built systems do not. They treat the map as a hint to be checked against everything else, and they leave room for the simple common truth that the map is just plain wrong this time. The privacy double edge. And there is a quieter edge to all of this worth naming. The same map that conveniently shows you local prices is also a map that profiles you. Every site you visit can place you, roughly, without asking, and that rough place feeds into the picture advertisers and platforms build of who you are. It is the familiar double edge this channel keeps running into. The technology that makes the internet feel local and personal is the very same technology that quietly tracks where everyone is, all the time, as a side effect of how the network was built. You cannot really have the convenience without the exposure. They are the same machine, what it is really about. So here is the thing to sit with. The internet feels like it knows exactly where you are, and that feeling is built almost entirely on confident guessing. A bare number matched against a map made of public records, volunteered hints, and timing measurements, none of them certain, all of them blended into a probability that gets presented to you as a simple fact. Most of the time the guess is close enough that nobody notices the guesswork at all. But it is always a guess, and once you see that, a lot of strange internet moments suddenly make sense. The lockout while traveling, the wrong currency, the block on something you should be able to reach. Behind all of them is the same humble truth. The internet does not know where you are. It has a strong opinion, and it is holding that opinion a little too tightly. If this is the kind of thing you find yourself thinking about, the quiet machinery under the everyday internet, then this channel is your sort of place. There is no product to sell you here. It is just the systems taken apart and explained by someone who has spent a long time on the inside of them. Subscribe and follow the rabbit hole. Next time we are going to follow the silent visitors that read the entire web so you can search it. How the crawlers work, how they decide what to read and what to skip, and the long quiet war between the polite ones that ask permission and the rude ones that pretend to be something they are not.